How often do you hear public dialogue about suicide and its prevention? You know, the fact that in Malaysia and most Asian countries, our culture literally forbids us to even talk about it. Let's talk about suicide. Choi! Soy! Shocking how little, right? Now, this is considering that death by suicide is actually the top 3 leading causes of death in the world. Well, coronavirus is somewhere there now and it's getting so much attention, but death by suicide is not. Why are we not talking about it? Yeah, I've been meaning to do this video before 10th of September, which was the World Suicide Prevention Day. I've been doing my research for this piece, and every time I come across something new and then I have to delay and rewrite again. So, enough. I'm going to do it now. I'll definitely revisit this topic again another time, but for now, this is 15 ways I think we can help to improve suicide prevention. My hope is that someone from MOH and our NGOs can actually take this seriously. So let's dive right in. So why is it so important for us to talk about it right now? Okay, here are some numbers, some stats. Hear me out. Approximately 800,000 people lose their lives to death by suicide around the world every year. That's one person every 40 seconds. About there with coronavirus, and yet we are still not giving it enough attention. Now, to put that into context, I've done a search on Google for those in Malaysia. That is the population of Ipoh. Imagine every year the whole population of Ipoh just disappears because of death by suicide. That's how huge it is. You want more stats? Times 10. In a decade, 8 million people die to death by suicide. It's such a huge problem, and we are just sweeping it under the carpet because it's taboo to talk about it. So, you know what? Today we're going to talk about it. I have had a year plus of running this channel about my own research into my own depression and survival from suicide. So here we go. Without wasting any more time, here's my 15 ideas. Disclaimer: I'm not claiming that any of these 15 ideas is a definite answer to actually preventing, but it's definitely worth exploring and implementing, especially here in Malaysia. This is just purely to provoke thought and debate. Let's do this. Number 1, updated legislation. The draconian law that actually makes it an offense to attempt suicide. Who are you kidding? If, let's say, suicide is an offense, wouldn't it be a motivation for you to actually make sure it happened? If I were to try it, I better make sure I go through and succeed with it, or else, if I don't, action is going to be taken on me. So I better make sure I get it done. It's counterintuitive. I mean, yes, it is a law from the British days and heavily influenced by religious reasons, because of course suicide is a sin. But from the perspective of civil law, is it really logical to do this? For those who survive, remember the number? For every one death by suicide, there were 20 other attempts. How is this going to treat the survivors of suicide? Is it going to make them regret that they didn't succeed with it? Or they should try it again? Once, let's say, you find them, or you even want to give them a jail term for actually attempting suicide, wouldn't they want to do it even more? I mean, come on, think! So yeah, draconian laws need to go. There are some other laws too, but we will try and get into that later. Number 2, let's standardize reporting. This one, as much as I don't want to laugh, but it's really sickening. It's really sickening. We don't have realistic numbers being reported about suicide attempts and death by suicide because it's such a sensitive topic in our culture. Can you imagine how many cases are going unreported because of the stigma and because of fear of losing your face, because it's an Asian culture thing? We don't know the real magnitude of the problem because there's no proper reporting, and even if there is, it's not readily available. Just try. There are resources on the WHO website, and when you click on it and you go to Malaysia, and fair enough, when you click on it and go, whoops, Where are the numbers? And we get numbers through periodic press releases from Ministry of Health whenever they... Another reason why people like us can't talk so much about it is because there are guidelines on the do's and don'ts of talking about suicide, you know. Just have a look. Just have a look and tell me. I mean, of course, it is for a good reason they do so, for fear of giving people ideas. I think the movies and TV programs are doing that so well, and we need to have a dialogue to actually counter these things. Like, is suicide a means to an end? How can we counter that if we are gagged from having any constructive, meaningful conversation about it? Maybe they think the general public is not mature enough for this topic. Seeing how social media is these days, maybe, perhaps. Maybe. Listen, I don't know why. You know, if we want to create awareness, we have to talk about it. We need to standardize reportings and make it readily available for the media. And which brings me to number 3. Number 3, be completely transparent. Again, about reportings, I mean, from my personal experience, when I was hospitalized last year, they advised me against my case being reported as a suicide attempt because it wouldn't look good on me. I would get into trouble. So it just went away. It was not even reported as is. I think it's time to be really transparent about it in the interest of the individual's privacy and reputation. Maybe they don't have to, but behind the scenes, we should actually log it as a suicide attempt, or if it's a death by suicide, let it be a death by suicide so that we get the real numbers. I mean, that's the most important thing, isn't it? If you think that's not bad enough, WHO, the World Health Organization, reports that for every 1 death by suicide, there were 20 other attempts at it. And furthermore, a lot of these cases are not even reported. No surprise, it's because of the taboo. And by some accounts, for every death by suicide, another 125 individuals are affected, directly affected, be it emotionally or economically. This thing has affected more people than we realize or even dare to admit. So it's about time we have a talk about it and do something about it. Stop talking, let's do. If you're not going to be open and transparent about it, how are people going to come forward and seek help? How can others come in and offer their help if they don't see how large the problem is? So yes, we need to standardize reporting and we need to be transparent about it. That's so important right now. Number 4, I know I said less legislations, but we need, number 4, more regulations. When I mean regulation, I mean regulating the way we are treating patients with depression and anxiety, as well as those who have survived suicide. From my experience, the government hospitals are overwhelmed. They have very dedicated and very capable frontliners, but I really do feel for them because they're so overwhelmed. It's so hard to get an appointment. It's so hard to get the personal connection or the personal care between the caregiver and the patient that is required for this. Because of this, so many NGOs have actually popped up in Malaysia to actually help supplement with this. Have a look. So many of them, right? It just goes on and on. And who's regulating them? Who's watching them? Why do we need to create more of the same thing when we can be helping each other? That is the point I'm trying to put across here. I've approached some of them. Recently, I've just approached MIASA. Kudos to them. They're doing such a great job. They're really doing so much. But their approach can't be holistic because they are 6 strong members with more volunteers also. Look at the befrienders. They are doing so much with so little. I think we need to step up for them too. But there's so many other call lines besides the befrienders. There's so many other NGOs who are actually offering mental health services, but is it being regulated by the MOH? I don't think so. Prove me wrong, please, in the comments, but I don't think so. Not as much as it should be. Well, which brings me to number 5. Watch the Watchmen. Yes, we have a lot of good souls out there with good intentions, trying to help the situation, trying to help those who are in need of support and help to actually not resort to suicide. We got helplines and such. They provide counseling sessions, but are they really qualified? I'm not saying not all of them are not qualified now. Are they all really qualified? Do they have a standard to follow? Some of them do follow, but I will not be surprised with some of them don't. So yes, we need more regulations and we need to watch the Watchmen. We have to. It's not a question of do we? We do. When? Now. Number 6. Give it the COVID-19 treatment. Look at it. Every evening we sit by the television or we stand by our phones or mobile devices and we wait for the news coming from our hero. Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia ingin memaklumkan bahawa terdapat how many new infections, how many have recovered, how many have died. Every single day. And everyone gets scared. We need that kind of attention and urgency to actually combat suicide. I'm not saying that we need daily updates about how many people actually tried it and went through with it. I'm not saying that, but we need to have that kind of communications from our Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia, our Ministry of Health. Every country should be doing that. At least not every day, but every week or something like that. Just to let people know how serious the problem is. Nobody cares because nobody knows. And with COVID-19, everyone knows what is it, how to avoid getting it, how the government is helping those who are infected by it, how the government and NGOs are helping to stop the spread of it, how all the authorities are working together, Malaysians united behind this cause. I mean, what wonders can we achieve if we had the same kind of impact COVID-19 has? And we don't get this kind of awareness. Which brings me to number 7. Media mandated agenda. Okay, it's not the sexiest topic. Right now, the media should be putting a spotlight on this. I'm talking about news, lifestyle programs and such. If the media is not going to do it, who will? Social media is not the best place to do this actually, because like me, I'm not a trained professional. I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, and just maybe the government can give some incentives to the media if they can just take up the mantle of highlighting this issue and putting an end to it. I mean, talk about it and also direct those who need help to the right people, and also to stop the stigma. We need to keep everyone informed, and that's the way we stop the stigma. We can't just say stop the stigma and then it will stop by itself. It needs a deeper level of engagement, and the media can help with this. So yeah, that's number 7. Which brings me to number 8. We need less celebrities and professionals. Every time when it comes to depression, anxiety, PTSD, postpartum depression, blah blah blah, we always get a doctor or even, some celebrity who claims, I'm not putting them down. I'm just saying less of them, please. It's better to hear it from the horse's mouth, for the lack of a better word. Shouldn't those who are suffering it and those who are actually surviving it have an equal share of voice to tell about what they're going through or what their experiences are? We need more people to come up and share their own personal stories and personal journeys. There must be a way that we can encourage them to come forward for the good of the others, that we actually come forward and share our voice, our stories, our experience, how we're dealing with it. Since I started this channel about a year ago, I've had so many phone calls, messages, private messages, emails, asking me personally about my experience. And one of the most common feedback I get is that I would rather talk with someone within the same circle. MMHA and MIASA has peer support programs where those who are suffering and surviving it have a group to actually share it. That is good. That's really good. But I think we should try and break the mold and not only limit it to within anonymous groups. We need to bring it out. But let's not put more celebrities and professionals at the forefront. Let's have an equal share of voice. It would be more believable, I say, if we said suicide is not the right way to go. That's the way to survive from it. I'm taking up too much time. Number 9, youth engagement. The TikTok generation. Is that what the youth is right now? The youth is so much more than that. They are more in tune with the current trends and news more than we actually ever realize. So youth engagement is very important. So MIASA, MMHA and other NGOs are actually trying to get mental health as part of the curriculum at the school level. It is important, it is imperative that preserving mental health, as in the strength of the mind, is inculcated from a very young age. So it should be within our syllabus. Just like pendidikan jasmani, physical education. We get physical injuries, we know how to fix them, but when we get mental injuries, how do we fix them? That's where we need to tackle this in syllabuses in school, from the school level up. When they grow up, it will be easier for them to understand and be more sympathetic towards those who are actually facing mental illnesses. It's going to take years, maybe even decades, but it's a good start, so we have to start thinking about it. Now, this message is for our education ministry. Please look into it and make it happen, please. Number 10. Religious and cultural engagement. At the moment someone actually succumbs to clinical depression, Asian culture, what's the sucker, dah kena sucker. Okay, not S-U-C-K-E-R but S-A-K, okay? Or they got a spell on them, kena jumpy, soy, bad luck, need to mandi bunga, blah blah blah. With scientific findings and facts, we can actually have an active engagement with religious and cultural engagement, be it from state level down, trickle down to the masjid level, or the parish level, or the temple level, whichever it is. At least there's some kind of engagement to say this problem exists. Let's all consider that this thing could be scientific rather than of the other world. This also actually helps with stopping the stigma, because a lot of the stigma actually comes from misinterpretation of what mental illnesses are. Moving to number 11, empowering employees and employers. Those who are diagnosed with clinical depression or who have survived suicide, the reason why they don't come out and report or even admit it is because it will affect their livelihood. Surprise, surprise. In my opinion, I believe employers are afraid that if anything were to happen, they will probably is on them, or maybe they find it hard to navigate around this person because this person is a ticking bomb. It's time to stop the misunderstanding. Everyone is human, everyone has their flaws, nobody's perfect. Let's create an environment where there's less stress, and that stress also partly comes from the workplace. Contrary to number 1, which means less legislations, but we need more on the human resource front to protect the rights of those who actually have mental illness or who are suicide survivors, to actually secure a job or keep their current job without being discriminated. I've got an episode on this which is about what employees and human resource should know. So right here, please. The link is in the description. Please go and have a look if you have time. Number 12. Okay, I'm running out of fingers. Take it to the movies, TV or music. Maybe our movies can actually start addressing this in a more serious manner. For Malaysians, I think you'll understand. The woman gila pergi mana? Tanjung Rambutan. I mean, we really have to stop that. First of all, it's not a joke. It's not funny. Have you ever been to Tanjung Rambutan? I suggest you go and take a look at this post by Real Life. I'll put the link below. They visited Tanjung Rambutan and there's so much of wonderful things they said. The place is so misunderstood. It's such a wonderful place doing wonderful things for wonderful humans. So stop the jokes. Tanjung Rambutan is not a joke, okay? Stop it. So, why don't we have a movie about this? We have movies about all other kinds of victims, but none like this. We need more of that in movies, TV, and music. Okay, the caveat is with the consultation of a professional, so that this kind of things are not misinterpreted.
Interpreted.
Number 13. Be brave to rethink therapy. Now, therapy doesn't have to be just in a sterile room, a sterile soundproof room. Why can't you take therapy out to nature, to the garden, to the lakeside or something? Why do we have to be in a very clinical environment? Yes, it's controlled, but can we try something else maybe? Something less intimidating? That way, more people can actually approach to ask for help, knowing that the place isn't that intimidating. Let's look at it, please, please. Number 14. One stop, one voice. We have the befrienders. We have others. Let's say someone needs help. Who are you gonna call? So MOH has actually introduced this Mentari program, which is some sort like that. We need something like this which is more carefully thought out and implemented. Befrienders is doing a heck of a job, and the others also, but they are limited in terms of resource, staff, phone lines, equipment. Perhaps we could have some kind of like a call center system or something where there's one number, like Talian No, for example. That's a really good example. Perhaps Talian No could be also for this. If it gets too much, certain calls can be offloaded to different groups to handle. Imagine the synergy of everyone who's doing the same thing right now can cater for those who can't get help. Oh, newsflash! A bunch of us actually tried to help out the befrienders about a few years ago. Take a look. They don't have enough phone lines. Assuming they have 5 volunteers, but they only have 2 telephone lines and more than 2 calls coming. What happens to the person who can't get through? We need a way to cater to everyone. We can't go on making excuses saying that, oh, we're limited, we only have this much, we only have that much, you can't put it all on us. Yes, you cannot take on everything. We need to work together. I mean, I've been hearing it from some NGOs, I'm not going to name who, but you know how many people we have? We only have like X amount of people. You expect us to do everything. We are trying our best to do this. We don't know. Do we go and tell the whole world that we did this, we did that? Seriously, stop with the excuses and work on the solution. More people are going to die the more you make excuses. So seriously, stop it. Do something about it. Number 15. Let's get sci-fi. Okay, so my recent episode was about Neuralink, a chip that you can put into your head to actually control the signals that fire the neurons. That's really out of this world at this moment. Very ahead of its time. Far from being a solution, but it's getting there. It may be years until it's ready for human trials and even use. So it's something that we all should start investing in, start looking at seriously. For instance, there's another one here, which was recommended to me, a different kind of therapy. Costs money, but some actually swear by it, for a few $1,000, and that's depressing. So yeah, not only we have to think of things like that, but we also have to make it more accessible, as in cheaper and more accessible. Of course, I've barely scratched the surface of each of these ideas, okay? Barely. In the interest of keeping this video as short as I can, but nevertheless, they are based on my experiences and my research over the last 1.5 years, and as a survivor and someone who's recovering and adapting to life with clinical depression. So yeah, I take this very seriously, and I believe that if only the government and civilian agencies take this seriously and implement it, there's no reason why we can flatten the curve of suicide rates. Okay, so the other day there was this topic about, are we doing enough? It was on BFM. I'll put the link below to the podcast. Please have a listen to it. It's really good. It's not like we're not doing anything. I mean, for decades, many agencies, government and civilian included, have set up many initiatives to deal with the invisible killer. Yet we are nowhere close to a real answer. I mean, we're still doing the same things we've been doing for decades. Maybe a little different, but it's not drastic enough to really increase awareness and also give hope to those who are actually suffering depression, anxiety and such, which actually leads to suicide. Give them hope that we can actually stop this, we can prevent this. It's not a means to an end, it's not a solution. Clinical depression still doesn't have a cure. Mental health issues still face an overpowering social stigma. The list goes on. So are we doing enough? Don't get me wrong, it's not the time to be hopeless right now. In fact, the most logical thing to do right now is to look at what's happening, and let's discuss ideas that haven't been done or even looked at seriously. Maybe it's being done but it's not being taken seriously. So let's take a look at that. Old problems weren't being solved by just doing the same old things over and over again. We need to think out of the box. We need to think new, maybe even radical. We can if you just put our heads to it. I'm not saying no one is. Some are, but not all of us. We all need to do our part. Everyone. I totally believe it can work given a decent chance. Yes, and for people like this who are actually doing so much, it's really tiring on them. I've approached some parties who are tirelessly working towards suicide prevention, providing help and support for those in distress, empowering members of the public with knowledge. And can you imagine how they feel when someone like me goes to them and asks them, "Are you doing enough?"
Then everyone loses their minds.
It's like a slap in the face. I mean, like, if you were to ask me if I'm doing enough, running this channel, talking about whatever I can find, doing my research, creating these videos, it's not easy. But am I doing enough? I admit, no, I'm not doing enough, but I'm trying my best. They will say the same thing too. But the difference is, I'm not making up excuses and saying that I'm a one-man show. I'm doing this because I'm trying to rally people to support the others who are working in the same direction to save lives, to improve the lives of those who are having depression and also survive suicide. We all need to work together. It's not a one-man show. I'm not a one-man show. I'm doing this because no one is doing it. They will say the same thing too. But really, we need to work together. So here's my summary. Remember, there is no cure for depression, only ways to adapt and live with it. Early detection is made harder by the fact that public awareness is so low, and it's making it hard to recognize how many of us are at risk of having more severe clinical depression, which could lead to an attempt on suicide. Healing is a lifelong process. However, depression can be overcome. Clinical depression is, in a very simplified manner to speak, a fault in the brain causing sadness, hopelessness, unworthiness, and shame. If left untreated, it could lead to suicide. We all need to understand this. You know why? Because shame is magnified by a society who's not aware or can't comprehend what depression is. And that's why we need to change this now. Finally, the parting thought. Trust. The trust is a huge barrier between those seeking help and those providing help. I believe that if we can implement at least some, if not all, of the ideas that I put forth here, which is nothing new actually, these ideas have been covered in this report by the World Health Organization, and Malaysia's Ministry of Health needs to follow up on this pronto. With that, please, please, please help me spread the word. If you know someone in the Ministry of Health, please forward this video to them. If you know anyone in an NGO who's helping those with mental health matters, please forward this to them and let them know we all need to work together now. Thank you, and I'll see you again soon.